Alright, to start our 2025 Super League Week 1 preview, we are looking at a marquee cross-conference matchup between myself, your current interim commissioner, Cam Martin, and your future commissioner, Scott Draka, who will be taking on the role in 2026. Now, while this head-to-head rivalry between myself and Scott hasn't been much of a rivalry at all, with me beating Scott 3 times while Scott's beat me 7 times, including our last matchup in Week 14 last year, this rivalry does hold great historical significance. While I am the number 2 most winningest Super Leaguer in history with 75 wins, Scott's right behind me with 71 wins. And though I had a great season last year with 2,000 points and a 5th seed finish, Scott has been red hot in the second half of the Super League's history, finishing with a bronze medal last season, as well as his 5th division title and his 4th in as many years. An absolutely stellar run from Scott that included a World Championship win in 2022. Can I hold off Scott and keep my spot in the all-time wins rankings, or will Scooter surge into the number 2 slot with only one more person in his way to becoming the GOAT? Also, the winner of this game will be commissioner next year. It will be Scott, since I did not have a first-round pick this year. Next, we have the matchup that has happened more times than any other matchup in Week 1. It's our 2024 number 11 seed Brino Bayer versus our 2024 number 9 seed Jimmy Spiegel. This matchup has happened a whopping 24 times in our league's history, and while it started off pretty even with the two being 5-5 against each other at one point, that hasn't been the case recently, as their current record is 15-9 in favor of Brino. While Jimmy did win their last matchup in Week 6 of 24, Brino has been outclassing him throughout our league's history. Brino currently has 65 wins, which is 4th all-time, while Jimmy has 56 wins, which is the worst of all the OGs. While Jimmy is an important member of the league, being an OG and former world champion who brought both Brian and Jacob into the league, his recent numbers have been lacking. Who better to start a comeback campaign against for Jimmy than our inaugural world champion in Brino? Next, we have a great matchup between lifelong friends Brian Gronseth, who finished 6th last year, versus Jacob Miller, who finished 4th last year. Shockingly, these two teams have only faced off 6 times since joining the league. While we will look to change that in the future, let's examine their past history. While they started off splitting their first 2 meetings, Brian has won 4 straight, including their last matchup in Week 16 of 2023. When it comes to their individual histories, Jacob has 43 wins, while Brian has a whopping 64 wins, which places him at 5th all-time. That's better than 4 of the 8 Super League OGs. While Brian has the stats, Jacob has the hardware, winning his 2nd division championship last year, adding to his already impressive resume that includes a world championship win in his 2018 rookie season. These two will be in the same division this year, so we'll get to see this feud grow more personal as they compete for their division crown. While Jacob will look to improve his stats, Brian will look to hoist that ever-elusive world championship. Next up is another big matchup. We've got our 2024 8 seed in Steven Donner versus our 2024 7 seed in Brendan Asian Hop. 4 years ago, Asian brought Donner into this league, but I'm thinking Asian may be regretting that just a tiny bit now, because Donner immediately established himself as an absolute fantasy football animal, winning himself the Super League World Champion in his very first year in the league. While Asian is a former world champion himself, that happened all the way back in 2016, where his world championship win was overshadowed by the monumental 11-2 season that Cam Martin had when he went 11-2 in 2016. While Asian is a legend in this league, a founder, an OG, and an ex-world champion, Donner is currently the most popular kid in school and everybody's talking about him. This juxtaposition is even further exemplified when examining their head-to-head rivalry. While Asian welcomed Donner into the league with some tough love, going 7-0 in their first 7 matchups, Donner has since won 3 straight against Asian, including their last meeting in Week 17 of last year. If Asian ever returns from being lost at sea, he'll look to reclaim some of his former glory that Donner has taken from him and win their division crown. Next is one of the more interesting matchups in Week 1. It's our defending silver medalist Alex Abbott versus our 2024 number 10 seed Joe Mysick. This matchup is the only one in Week 1 where the competitors are currently even against each other, as these longtime division rivals both have 9 wins against the other. What makes it more interesting is that they seem to take turns dominating each other. Joe started off with 3 straight wins against Alex in 2018. A few years later, Alex went an impressive 4-0 against Joe in the year 2022. The next year, 2023, Joe went 3-0 against Alex. In 2024, you guessed it, Alex went 3-0 against Joe, capping his clean sweep off with a victory in Week 8 of 2024. So that brings us to this year. This historical pattern tells us that this is Joe's year to dominate the rivalry, but Alex is coming off his second top 3 finish in 3 years while winning his second division championship and appearing in the World Championship game for the first time ever. Alex has 57 wins while Joe has 53 in 3 fewer seasons. Joe has history on his side, but Alex has the momentum. This will be an exciting division matchup that we will be lucky to revisit again in Week 12 later this year. And finally, our main event of Week 1. We've got a hot division matchup between our last 2 world champions. In 2024, Steve accomplished, for the second time, something nobody else has done in history by winning the Triple Crown Championship, while also earning his 4th Division Championship. Meanwhile, CJ had his worst season in 2024, finishing as the ultra-disgraceful 12th seed. While their head-to-head feud has been close to even, with Steve having 10 wins over CJ and CJ having 9 over Steve, history has favored Steve. Steve is the only 2-time world champion, as I mentioned before, winning the Triple Crown both times, and he's the most winningest Super Leaguer in history with a whopping 84 wins. Meanwhile, CJ only has 61 wins and is tied for 6th all-time with a non-OG ahead of him in Brian. So with Steve winning the big one last year and CJ coming in last, you might be wondering why first versus the worst is the main event for the week. The answer is simple. My little brother needs to be taught a lesson. Not only does he take almost a full year to deliver the trophy to Steve, he couldn't even get it engraved, instead putting a little sticky note and writing with marker Steve's name. CJ, you are a disgraceful champion and you need to be taught a lesson. Unfortunately, as your brother, I don't have the heart to put out a beating on you, little brother. So, I'm enlisting the help of the GOAT. Steve, I'm putting you in the main event with CJ and I'm giving you permission to give him the most violent beating this league has ever seen. This kid needs to be taught a thing or two about respect, and you are the man for that job.
All right, so there it is. There's our preview for Week 1. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you all in the finals.